Greetings, Earthlings! Today we're going to keep it simple and focus on 3 things on how to play Zed correctly. And no, this is not Biggie's version. First, we're going to go ahead and cover what items to get on what units. Obviously, Zed is the most important, but there's still other units you can throw items on that'll help you out. Then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the units. These are going to be the legendary units you focus on. Obviously, the core of your team is going to be the 4 ninjas. And then the most important part is positioning. You can have the best items on the best units, but if you don't position correctly, you're going 8. And finally, you're asking yourself, well, how do I profit from all this? Obviously, I'm going to rank up and get Challenger in 3 days, but so what? Well, in reality, the best way to profit from this is to like this video and subscribe to my channel, because in that case, you won't actually just be doing me a favor, you're going to also be helping out this guy. This is my buddy AGRIPPADARIPPA. He is a fellow Zed master player. And I figured I'd get his input on these things, so you guys are actually going to be getting a 2-for-1 video. I mean, come on. I figured the best way to lay this out is going to be to show his ideas first, followed by mine, and then a split screen so you can see both at once. This way you can see there's not one perfect way to play, but there are definitely similarities in how we do things, and there's probably a reason for that.
So for items, RFC is the highest priority item, followed by Zekes. And Hurricane is close behind, followed by Rageblade, Hand of Justice, and Last Whisper. QSS is a bit of a situational item, but because it comes at the risk of forfeiting too much damage. As for support items, Locket is great when you have a Chain and Rod, and items such as Shroud, Sunfire, Ludens, or Onyx Spark can go on Pike.
So my take is that obviously RFC is number 1. If you don't get RFC, you're going 8. Zekes is the clear number 2. You take that before you get your second Zed item. And then your third item can either be another Zekes or focus on a Rageblade or Hurricane for Zed. If you can get all these items in order, you're going to be having a good time. I see the QSS and Hodge as kind of backup third items. If you don't have faith in your positioning, you might want to get the QSS so it'll save your butt. And I'll probably slam Hodge if I get the items early on. I'm not going to sit and wait to make a perfect item Zed every single game. And if you stumble upon a Locket, throw it on Kennen. The more time you can buy for Zed to kill people, the better. With a similar idea of putting a Frozen Heart on Pike. Just like stacking Zekes on Akali, you can stack Lockets on Kennen, but that's going to be a backup. You're first going to want to get your Zed items and your Zekes if possible. As you can see here, we generally have the same idea on items. The first difference being I prefer Zekes as clearly the second item, when he can either go Zekes or Hurricane. I also prefer 2 or more Zekes if possible, especially if you're going to get a QSS, you still need that attack speed that you're going to be lacking. He also prefers Last Whisper more than I do. I only play Last Whisper when there's other Vanguard comps that I need to go through. And as you can see, we both have Locket on Kennen. He threw that Giant Slayer on Zed in there in case you're fighting brawlers. He also told me he puts blue buff on Akali just as an item in certain circumstances. He doesn't aim to put blue buff on Akali, but if he has leftover tiers, that's where he's going to put them.
So as a rule of thumb, go for QSS when you feel like your Zed does enough damage with 2 items. This may be when you already have either 2 Zekes or chosen Z3. Of course, if the whole lobby is running Adepts, Azrael, or Lilia, then QSS is almost always worth it. The first carousel priority is bow, over sword, over belt, over glove, over basically all other items.
As I said before, you're going to need that RFC no matter what. So you're always going to be looking for 2 bows, not T-bow, not 2 chain vests. For tier 2, I put Hurricane, Rageblade, and QSS. I do prefer them in that order. The main problem is trying to get 4 bows, so that build normally doesn't actually come around. That's why you can also settle for a QSS, or if you see on the 3rd tier, the Hand of Justice. As I mentioned before, I will usually slam Hand of Justice if I come across it, simply because I don't plan on getting 4 bows every game. It's just too hard to get. If you want to be greedy, you can only put 2 items on Zed, and then wait for stage 5 to get that 3rd Rageblade or Hurricane. I don't recommend this, but sometimes your items are just garbage. And on the 4th tier, we have Bloodthirster, Giant Slayer, and Last Whisper. Usually Bloodthirster is just because you have too many swords and you just don't know what to do with them. You can also make a Deathblade, but And Giant Slayer and Last Whisper are when I see a lot of brawlers or I see a lot of Vanguard. Again, here we have basically the same items. The main difference is he has the Last Whisper on the 3rd tier, and I have it on the 4th tier, and he also has a GA on his 4th tier. I've heard a lot of good and bad about GA, so I just tend to avoid it. I figure since Zed is usually the last one alive on your team anyways, that he's probably fighting more than one unit and the GA isn't really going to matter. But on the other hand, it could just be a one-on-one and it comes in clutch, so you never know. Choose your own adventure.
The legendaries I like to put in late game are Yone over Azir over Zillion over Kayn over Lilia. I think Lilia is actually a really good unit, even though it doesn't seem like it would fit in the comp. And it's definitely worth putting in if you have if you go level 9 or you have a Force of Nature. But at level 8, it's best to find one of the top 3 legendaries, which are Yone, Azir, and Zillion.
At this point, I'm pretty sure he's just copying me and then just slightly changing his answer, because as you can see, we have basically the same idea once again. I think Yone and Azir are pretty much interchangeable as number 1. I would put them both in at level 7. I've had games where I was Shen cursed and I found Azir 2 before I found a single Shen, and it kept me alive until I finally found that stupid Shen. The general idea is I would prefer to have those two at level 8 and then be able to throw in Zillion at level 9. People seem to overestimate Kayn, especially level 1 Kayn. They think, oh, he's a Shade, he'll be super cool with Zed and Eve. But in reality, the only reason Zed has Shade is so he can go in and out of combat. The magic buff damage it gives him does jack squat. I'll usually replace Eve with Kayn later on, but honestly Eve 2 is pretty much just as good as Kayn 1 most of the time. Another small difference we have is I throw in Ezreal because I like the buff he gives to Zed. I try to make sure I have Ezreal on the opposite side of Zed, so when he ults across the map, Zed gets a super speed buff. This is the point though when you're usually just like, well, I got 4 ninja and let's throw in 5 legendaries. Lilia's okay too. Here's our handy dandy comparison chart again. Once again, just a slight difference in that I like Ezreal and he likes Lilia. Probably because the character titles themselves describe us perfectly. I'm Ezreal, the prodigal explorer, and he is Lilia, the bashful bloom. Don't tell him I said that though. Be very, very quiet.
So the core units are the 4 ninjas plus Evelynn, Pyke, and Elise. And this is your comp at level 7. The game plan for most games, in my experience, is to roll at 7 for Z3 and Pyke 3. Pyke 3 is actually a really underrated unit that can help you stabilize really hard in the case that you don't hit Z3. And even when you do hit Z3, Pyke 3, the 4-second stun on Pyke 3 is definitely really valuable. And also in games where other players hit a lot of early Shens, I would go 8 to find Shen. And when contested, I would also go 8 with Z2 instead of Z3. For positioning, in general, like the linear positioning shown is best. This position allows enemy units to walk up, which makes room for your Zed to get backline access and have a safe targeting distance.
This is my general level 7 positioning. As you see, Zed is on the outside, the idea being that you can jump him into an empty space, or at least a space where there's not a whole bunch of units where he'll just get caught up. For instance, you would actually want to jump him into an Ashe, Yuumi, Kindred side when there's nothing in front of them. This will let you quickly kill their carries and basically win you the round all at once. But you would not want to jump him into a Jhin when he has 4 units in front of him that are super tanky. You can also see the Kennen and Elise are positioned where they give a double shield to Eve and Akali. Akali tends to do second most damage, so I want to have her live as long as possible, while on the other hand Eve just tends to be a target dummy for the other team. But again, it's taken more time to distract from Zed, who's doing the real damage. I also backline Shen because I want the whole other enemy team to come all the way to my backline, which brings them farther away from Zed. Because again, the whole point of this comp is to let Zed free fire for as long as possible and kill everybody. You also want to make sure Pyke is on the opposite side of Zed because that'll be another distraction, and typically because Zed is jumping into open space, Pyke is jumping into the cluster of people and is then able to jump away and stun them at the same time. Really the only differences here is that I backline Shen while he puts on the second row. This gives Shen and Akali the double shield instead of Eve and Akali. Not a really big deal, but if you look on the left, my Pyke is actually on the second row because it's slightly farther left, so that makes it just slightly longer of an ult he can pull off because when he ults he goes across the map. It will also try to make sure that he hits whatever unit is in that very back corner. Not a huge deal, just a slight difference.
It also makes it really easy to switch positions to the other side because your units can swap places with each other, and you only need to move like 3 or 4 units. Also, Eve and Akali, they take aggro when Zed stealths, which gives him another layer of protection.
This is just the positioning you do when there's somebody already on the right side and you want to jump on the left side instead. It takes me about 5 seconds to swap, so I try to wait till there's about 6 seconds left for the next round to start in case I slightly mess up, and this gives them very little time to switch their team. By now you're probably noticing this lightning theme I got going on. There's actually no reason for it, I just thought it was kind of cool. It's also been raining here recently. Who would have thought? Raining in December. Did you guys get out of your house and see Saturn and Jupiter the other day? Well, if you didn't, here it is. I hope you enjoyed your preview of Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. We will now return you back to your regular scheduled programming, TFT with PJ Lucan, and special guest, AGRIPPADARIPPA. I'm just going to go ahead and cover this section for both of us. This is simply adding a locket to Kennen. All you're going to do is move one of your units from the second row, in his case Shen, down to the bottom row. This will let you have 5 units in a row, get the max value out of your locket.
And when playing Azir, I usually put one of the soldiers in the back line to bait units such as Kayn, Cat, and Veigar, as well as Aphelios. And then one of the soldiers in the front to bait units like Set and Lee Sin.
I prefer to keep my whole team in the back line, since literally half my team is jumping to their side of the map. I'm trying to bait them into my side where I have A, the Azir ult, B, the Kennen ult, and then C, the Shen ult, to keep them there and do damage while my other assassins and shades are doing their damage. In this case, I somewhat protect Azir with his soldier just to buy a little bit of extra time to build up his ult, and the other soldier on the left as bait for any of their units jumping to my side of the board. This brings us to the DIY section of the show, where you try both of these and see what works best for you. It's kind of like homework, but fun, and you get to kill stuff.
I also like to position Yone in the front so that he can prevent enemy units from spreading out. So I know a lot of people position Yone kind of in the second, third, or even like the back row to make sure he stays alive. But I think his shield actually usually allows him to stay alive until he can cast once. At that point, I don't really care if he casts again and triggers his like stacks. I just value the shield, or sorry, the armor and magic shredding that he does.
This is what I do when I have a Yone as well as an Azir on my team. I like to keep him in the back because usually that keeps him alive to the end, so he has like a tag team with Zed. I am trying so hard right now not to sing that song. And then it's really hard for the other team to beat Zed and Yone when they only have a few units left. I could also put the Pyke on the very front row on the very left, like I said before, to make him to the very left position. I just want to make sure that in either case, I just don't have him next to Yone because I want Yone to have that initial shield. Now I heard AG there say, well, he doesn't really care if Yone dies. I think that's very, very rude. I want all my units to survive. He even sacrifices the soldiers right away. Man, this guy. Either way, go ahead and try both ways and see what you like best. That's the whole idea of this, is to get 2 different perspectives so you can try them both out and then come back and tell us which one is right, and obviously it's going to be mine. Thanks again for watching the video. Let me know what you thought about this multiple perspective kind of video in the comments. While you're there, just go ahead and hit that sub button for me. And then check out AGRIPPADARIPPA on Twitch.